Hi folks, we are back to car maintenance today. We started the first of the summer hot spells. It's over 90 here today and it's supposed to only get worse through the week, so I'm glad to be able to be inside the shop in the cool to be able to do this today. What we have is a problem with the driver's side headlight. It's blown. If you look here, you can see the passenger one is fine. It's the driver's side one that's out. So we need to change it out. Fortunately, with this Honda, it's relatively easy, and I'll show you how to do it. Another thing that I do want to point out is if you notice there on these headlights, there are two separate headlights on each side of the front of the car, and that's because this style with the Honda has individual low and high beams. Let me just show you what the high beams look like here. Get the lever here. And as you can see, still don't have a low beam there, but then both of the lights are lit over there. Some cars have integrated the low and high beams so that you only have, turn those off for now, so that you only have one bulb with two filaments in it. That's good and bad. It's technically a little bit cheaper, but the fact of the matter is you're going to wear out your low beams much quicker than your high beams because you don't use your high beams as often, at least most people don't. So if you have individual ones, that way you don't have to change out a combination light that probably has still some life left on the high beam side. So, and changing the high beams on these Hondas are a little more complicated than the low beams. I'll show you that in a minute, but I won't change those because I don't have to. Now, what is certainly prudent is if you're going to change one headlight out, change them both out, because if that one went, the driver's side went, that means the passenger side probably will go in short order too, because you know they're on in tandem. You don't turn one headlight on. So the simplest thing is to just get a pack of headlights. What I chose here was a Silver Star Ultra. These you can get at any auto parts store, Walmart, you know, any number of different places. They're relatively good. They're high power halogen. Of course, they're not the LEDs, but they're even more expensive. So this is the third step up, I think, with the Silver Star brand. It's supposed to be the third of the brightest of the three levels that you can buy. So since my wife drives this vehicle most of the time, I don't mind spending a little more money on that so that she's got better nighttime illumination while she's driving. So that's what we're going to do. And maybe we'll do some polishing here on the lenses that are starting to get a little bit clouded over. Now, the style that most car manufacturers have gone to in the last several years is they have a plastic housing for the headlight assembly, and that's what you see right there. The bulb actually, or bulbs in this case, because like the turn signal bulb and the high beam bulb are separate. They fit in from the back of the housing so that when you go to change it, you don't have to take this whole piece off the car. I mean, in the old days of the sealed beam headlights, you had to pull the whole thing out and replace the whole thing. It was a bit more expensive. The bad thing is, because this is plastic, not glass, it means over time it will cloud over as the plastic abrades. And if it should crack and start to leak, you've got to replace the whole housing, and that's expensive. And that's what it's just a manufacturing ploy to get you to trade your car in quicker, or spend more money for aftermarket parts if you decide to keep it. But as far as to nurse it along, well, there are ways that we can polish this up a bit to keep it relatively bright. And let me just show you where the headlight fits in here. If I can maybe go down this way. You can see, if you look down in there, right where I have the light shining, that's the rear end of the headlight. The white connector on there. That's your wiring harness connecting into it. So what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to push that down and off, the white harness, and then I'm going to rotate the headlight bulb about 90 degrees, and it should pop right out, and then I can just reverse course to put the new ones in. Now, one other caution always when you're working with headlights. You can see I have gloves on now, even though this isn't a really dirty job. You want to always be careful. You do not want skin oils or skin perspiration, liquid, whatever, sweat, to touch the glass portion of the headlight, or that will significantly reduce the life of the headlight. Because it burns so hot, it's coated, and you don't want to disrupt that coating with any kind of substance that might compromise its ability to burn. Now these are rated for, I think, 300 hours, which is relatively good. So I don't want to take any chances of, I'll try not to touch it at all, even with the gloves on. I'll try to just grab the plastic base like I have a hold here, if possible. But just in case I should bump it, at least I have the plastic, or the nitrile gloves, as opposed to my skin touching it, where the oils would get on the, oils or sweat would get on the bulb. So we don't want to do that. So let me pull the first bulb out, and we'll come back to you with replacing it. Okay, we got the first bulb out, the one that didn't work. You can see that's right here. And I don't know if this is the original equipment one or not. I know since we have the van, we haven't changed any light bulbs, but that would be 8 years that they got out of this, but I don't know if that's possible. So I don't know. We've put probably, in the 6 years we've had this, I think we've probably put close to 80,000 miles on it. So I don't know for sure. I don't remember changing these out before. So there could be either somebody changed it out before we got it, or it's the original equipment one, which would be great. You get 80,000 miles and 8 years out of a a light bulb. Well, 110,000 actually. So here's the new one. You can see it's got the same kind of connector, same kind of gasket to make it watertight, and it's a bit better quality of bulb, I think. And we'll put this in just a second here. Let me just show you this. It wasn't too difficult to get it out, except my hand had a hard time getting down through this space here between this cross member and the back of the headlight housing. So I kind of slid one hand down this way, and my other hand I kind of stuck around this cross member between the battery and the air cleaner. By the way, the high beam headlight, oops, on camera. The high beam headlight housing is right over here. It's actually almost as easy to get to. It's a little deeper down in, but should I ever have to change the high beam, that's down in there too. So if you have a Honda Odyssey, and I think the style is the same for about 5 or 6 years. I thought I saw somewhere 2005 to 2010 they're about the same to change. So if you run into that, it's still a do-it-yourself project. You don't need to take it to a shop. So let me put the new one in, and we'll test it, and we'll see that it's working properly. As you can see, it's working. So it went in relatively easily, just even less than a quarter turn it was, and then the ears are inside the tabs. It should have a watertight seal. I connected the wiring harness again. Now, one thing I just wanted you to notice about the difference between this light, you see the whitish coloration? Well, if you look at this one, you can see the original equipment light was a bit more yellowish, I think, than this. And of course, it does look a bit brighter. Part of that could be because of the quality of the bulb I got. And also, these bulbs do lose some brightness over the course of their lifetime. So some of that diminished output could be just because of the age. So I'm ready to take out the second one and fix that. Now what I may do with that second one is stick it back in the pack here just so I have an emergency one. The one that doesn't work I gotta make sure I throw away so I don't get it mixed up. But how much life is left in this other one, I don't know. But like I said, it's not worth taking the time to change it out later. While I'm doing this now, I'll do them both. Okay, so I'll be... Alright, as you can see, both lights have been replaced. Again, you can see this one looks a bit brighter than it was before, and both of them look a bit whiter, so hopefully these will last for a few years anyway. 300 hours we hope. I'll give you the full effect with the high beams. You can see the high beams are still a little bit more on the yellow side, but that should give me a fair amount of light driving at night now, which is what we want. This is the cheaper model of the Honda Odyssey, so there are no fog lights on it, so we have to make do with just these headlights. I've had other vehicles that I always like the fog lights so that if there's lower visibility, or even if it's a darker night and you're driving somewhere where there's no street lights but there's traffic, you can just turn on your regular beams and your fog lights, and it still gives you some extra low to the ground visibility to see what's around you. But at any rate, in this case, we'll make do. Like I said, I'll polish these lenses up a bit to increase that a little bit more, and then this job will be done. Now, as I've said before, headlight lenses do get cloudy or smoky just from wear in time. This in the 2010 Honda Odyssey, obviously it's an 8-year-old vehicle, you're going to have some of that. So that diminishes the brightness of the headlights at night to some extent, and also it makes the vehicle look a bit older. There are a number of ways to restore these. You can buy a kit for, I don't know if it's 10-12 bucks at the auto parts store, with some abrasives and so on that you hook up to a cordless drill. I've also used toothpaste because that has some abrasives in it, not the gel but the paste. Well, my wife gave me an idea. She said that I should try something different this time. So that's what I'm doing. I have actually Ajax cleanser. Now you might think, oh no. Well, it's advertised as being scratch free. And if you read the instructions on the back, it says it can be used in in a variety of things, and it can be used on some plastics too. You're not to use it on silver, fabrics, painted surfaces, or plexiglass. Well, I think this plastic is a bit more durable than plexiglass, and I did test a small section of this, and it didn't seem to scratch it, it seemed to polish it. So we're going to try it on this one, and we'll see what we get. Again, we'll see what I can do here one-handed. First of all, I have just a spray bottle with water. I've basically wiped most of the dirt off of this first, wiped it with a wet paper towel. I'm not too worried about scrubbing it per se, but I'll be doing that with the Ajax cleanser. So what I want to do is I want to get this headlight lens good and wet, and then I've got here a damp sponge, and I'm going to put some cleanser right on the sponge like that, and then I'm going to just rub it on the lens. Now I want to be careful that I don't rub it against the paint of the car, just on the headlight, because that will scratch the paint possibly, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just rubbing it gently. I'm not trying to be too aggressive here. I want to cover the whole area because I would like to see the whole lens be restored. And by the way, just so that you understand, this is not a permanent fix. I know there are a number of guys out there on the internet have their own secret tricks that they claim will permanently fix them, but I don't know if any of them really work. I mean, the one guy said he still had to do his application once a year, and so on. So this is a periodic maintenance thing, I guess, with an older vehicle. But hey, if it gets you a few more years of life out of your car and your headlight assembly here before you have to replace it, it makes it worth it. So again, I'm just gently rubbing this. You can see there is some blistering on here. I don't know if that's the plastic or the clear coat paint that they installed in the factory. They do clear coat these with paint to try to make them more durable, but again, over time that wears off. So I think I've gotten it pretty well what we want to do with it. So I'll again douse it with water to kind of rinse it off well. And then, again, I'm doing this one-handed. I'll take my piece of paper towel here to dry it off. You can use something else other than paper towel if you'd rather, but I just have that handy here. I know it's hard for me to watch when I'm working. I watch where the camera's pointed. But if you look and see, it seems to be less cloudy than what it was. Now maybe it's not quite dry yet, I'm not sure, but well, the easiest, well, there's some here that still needs some scrubbing, I think. And maybe that part's too far gone, I'm not sure. So we'll do this again to wipe it off. I know I should have probably had all these paper towels ready to go before I did the video. Sorry. Don't mean to be making you seasick with the way the camera's moving around. Okay. And again, you know, this is an 8-year-old vehicle with over 100,000 miles on it. So it's not going to be perfect. I realize that. I'm not shooting for perfection. I'm just trying to improve the safety a bit and maintain the car for a few more years if we can get by with it. There. Now let's compare this to the other headlight because they both would be about the same. Oops. So you can see what that one looks like versus that one. That one definitely looks more smoked over than what this one does. So the only test will be at night if we see a noticeable difference. But at any rate, so that's one possible solution. Just make sure you get the scratch-free Ajax or some other cleanser like that. Don't rub too hard. Make sure you don't rub against the paint. Use plenty of water, and should be able to safely improve that lens housing. Again, there are other products out there that you can buy if you want to spend a lot of money that are supposed to restore or recoat. But that involves, you know, you've got to tape it off and you got to spray paint it, and it's an awful lot of work. So, and again, it's temporary. If you take 10 minutes to do this, maybe twice a year, you spend a few pennies on cleanser. It's probably a cheaper, easier way to go. So, just a thought, and hope this works for you. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to our channel.